The light hit him before the sound did. That was the thing nobody told you about close-range detonations. They didn't announce themselves. There was no building roar, no warning tremor through the floor. One moment the throne room was dim and quiet, banners hanging still in recycled air. And then the world turned white, and Draven Cole was already moving, already between the blast and her, already not thinking at all. He felt the heat first, a wall of it, a temperature spiking from the cold of the empty hall to something that pressed against his skin like an open furnace door. His jacket caught, his left arm went numb in the first second. In the second, he heard himself make a sound he didn't recognize. In the third, everything was light. Warlord Vexa did not move, not because she couldn't, because she was watching the energy lines across his body. No, not his body, she realized. His scar, the old one, running jaw to collarbone. One of the blast light caught it and threw it into sharp relief, and for 3 minutes she could not look away from a low medic who had put himself between her and dying without once asking if it was worth it. The guards arrived on minute 4. 47 minutes earlier, the throne room had been cold and empty. Draven had been issued a routine access pass, end-of-day medical sweep, the kind they gave the lowest clearance staff when the important ones had gone home. Check the emergency kits. E-log anything expired. Sign out by 2100. He had not expected anyone to be there. The throne room at night was not meant for people like Draven Cole. He understood that immediately, the way you understand something without being told. The ceiling was too high, the silence too deliberate, the war banners too carefully hung to suggest this space had ever been casual. He was 45 years old, compact and scarred in the way field medics get scarred, and he had spent enough years in enough difficult rooms to read a space before he touched it. This room said, "You are here to do a job and leave." He opened his kit on the secondary supply shelf near the east wall. Medical kit always overstocked. His supervisor had flagged it twice, called it inefficient. Draven called it being ready. He began checking the kits methodically, logging expiration dates on a handheld, not looking up. He almost missed her entirely. She stood at the far end of the hall near the viewport, back turned. Tall, 6'3" at least, and the midnight blue power armor made her taller. The energy lines across the suit glowed faint in the low light, tracing her shoulders, her spine, the backs of her arms. They pulsed slowly, like something breathing. Her hair was cut short in electric blue, sharp against the navy of her neck, and on her forehead, visible even from across the hall, a rank tattoo glowed the same bright, a restless color as her eyes when she finally turned. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at a point on the wall, or through it, or somewhere past this building entirely. Draven looked back at his kit. On her right pauldron, catching the dim overhead light, there was a scar. Old. Older than the armor by the look of it. A blade mark, deep and long, running from shoulder joint toward the back plate. Nobody had polished it out. He noticed it the way you notice something someone has chosen not to fix, and he looked away from that too. He kept working. The room was cold enough that he could see his own breath, faint white puffs in the recycled air. He had been there 11 minutes when the signal tripped. Not an alarm. Something quieter. A low-frequency pulse through the floor that Draven recognized from 2 forward-based deployments. His body recognized it before his mind finished processing. He was already turning, Mike already scanning the room, when the east wall panel clicked. The panel should not have clicked. It had no moving parts. He had 2 seconds to understand what that meant, and in the first of those 2 seconds, Warlord Vexa turned from the viewport and looked directly at him with eyes that had already calculated the threat, the angle, the blast radius, and her own distance from cover. In the second, her hand moved toward her comm. The guards were not there, or the guards would not be there for 3 more minutes. A small, absurd thought crossed Drubin's mind. I overstock the kit for every scenario except this one. And then the panel blew. A low medic had no business stepping between Blast and Warlord, but he did. He moved on instinct, and instinct had very little dignity about it. There was no calculation, no heroic weighing of options. His body simply registered that she was behind him, and the blast was in front of him, and those two facts produced one response. He got between them. His kit went one way. His shoulder went into her chest, turning her, putting his back to the source, and the detonation hit him like a wall falling. His left arm absorbed most of it. The jacket held for about a half second before the burn came through. He felt his knees go wrong. He did not fall. He was stubborn about that, or maybe just lucky. But he listed hard against her, and she caught him, and for a moment they were both very still in the ringing silence. His scar, the blast light had found it, the jaw to collarbone mark, old and silver, and the explosion's white flare had thrown it into full relief against his skin. It matched the angle of hers, he realized dimly. Blade on one, heat on the other. The energy lines on her armor flickered. That was the detail she couldn't explain later. Not his bravery. Not the sacrifice. The flickering of her own lines. Biological, involuntary, the kind of response a Vorenti warrior's body produces when it recognizes a threat to someone it has already decided to protect. Her lines had never flickered for anyone alive. They had flickered for the dead at funerals, for fallen soldiers she had fought beside for decades. They flickered now for a medic she had known for 11 minutes. The blast's afterglow clung to the walls in fading ribbons. The light caught the scar on his jaw, silver sharp, and threw its shape across the surface of her armor in a long, trembling shadow. Her energy lines pulsed once, twice, and went very still, as though waiting for instruction that did not come. He didn't ask if it was the right call. He just moved. Is that what it looks like when someone decides you matter? The advisors arrived with the guards, 3 of them, moving fast, speaking faster. Extraction protocol, secondary corridor, which the warlord's safety required immediate relocation. The threat level had not been assessed. The room was still compromised. Please, Warlord Vexa, the secure wing is 40 seconds away. She did not move. Draven was on the floor by then. Not collapsed, not dramatic about it, just sitting with his back against the base of the throne dais because his left leg had decided to stop cooperating, and the floor was as good a place as any. His kit was somewhere across the room. His jacket sleeve had burned through at the shoulder, and the skin underneath was angry and red, and he was doing the thing field medics do when they're hurt, which is assess themselves the way they'd assess a stranger, methodically, without sentiment, cataloging damage in order of urgency. Left arm, burns, 2nd degree, manageable. Left knee, impact damage, weight bearing, compromised. Ears, ringing, would pass. Everything else, present and accounted for. He became aware that someone was still beside him. Not a guard, not a medic. The actual medics hadn't arrived yet. Just her. Warlord Vexa, 6'3" and armored, and entirely out of place on the floor of her own throne room, crouched at his level with her electric blue eyes doing something he didn't have a word for. Her energy lines had steadied. Not fully. They still pulsed unevenly, like a rhythm that had nothing to do with her armor's standard cycle. but they were no longer flickering toward dark. Warlord, one of the advisors stepped forward, voice careful the way voices get when someone powerful is doing something unpredictable. Protocol requires. I know what protocol requires. She did not look up. The advisor tried again, softer. The room is unsecured. If there is a secondary device, then you should leave. That stopped him. Draven looked at her, and she looked at him, and neither of them said anything for a moment. His hand was resting on the floor between them, palm up, the burn marks on his forearm visible and raw. She was looking at the scar on his jaw, the one the blast had found and illuminated like it had always meant to. He said quietly, not to the advisors, not to the room, just to her. You're worth more than protocol. Her energy lines flared once, brilliant and sudden, and then settled into a steadiness they hadn't held all evening. The advisors exchanged a look that required no translation. She reached down and took his hand, not gently, the way people hold hands in quiet moments, firmly. The way soldiers hold on to each other in the field when holding on is the only thing keeping one of them upright. Her fingers closed around his burned wrist, not on the damaged skin, slightly above it, precise, and she did not let go. His performance review, filed 3 days later, read, exceeded scope of assigned duties. No further notes. The actual medics arrived 6 minutes after the guards. They found the throne room in a state that none of their training had adequately prepared them for. Evidence of a close-range detonation. 3 senior advisors standing near the east wall with the expressions of people waiting for a situation to resolve itself. Warlord Vexa of the Varenthi High Command, sitting on the floor of her own throne room, are in full armor, holding the hand of a compact middle-aged human medic who had a second-degree burn covering most of his left forearm and appeared to be calmly dictating his own injury assessment to no one in particular. They hesitated in the doorway. One of the advisors made a small gesture. Just work around it. They worked around it. Draven let them treat the arm without commentary. He'd already triaged himself accurately, which they noted with the mild professional respect medics give each other across species lines. He did not ask her to move. She did not offer to. When they needed to shift his position to reach the shoulder burn, she shifted with him. And nobody said a word about it, because the energy lines on her armor were doing something none of the Varenthi staff had seen in living memory, and the human medics didn't know enough to be surprised. Bright, steady, all of them lit. Every line on the armor, Ash from pauldron to boot, burning at full intensity. On her forehead, the rank tattoo pulsed in rhythm with them. Draven noticed, because he noticed things. That normal? He asked, nodding toward her shoulder. No, she said. He accepted this without further questions, which was, she would think later, the most Varenthi thing a human had ever done. How long they stayed on that floor, the record did not note precisely. Long enough for the burn to be dressed and the knee to be braced, and the advisors to quietly give up on extraction and begin filing incident reports from the doorway. Long enough for the room to go from emergency to something else, something without a clean bureaucratic category. On her right pauldron, the old blade scar caught the room's recovering light. On his jaw, the silver mark that had been there for 16 years caught the same light from a different angle. She did not release his hand until the medics said they were ready to move him. He didn't ask her to stay. She already had. Outside the viewport, the station's running lights came on, the slow blue cycle that marked the shift from night protocol to morning. They moved across the throne room floor in long parallel lines, crossing the dais, crossing the banners, crossing the two of them, still sitting where the blast had left them. The light passed over both scars at once and kept going. Are indifferent, the way light always is. It did not know what it had just touched. He didn't ask her to stay. She just did. Come back tomorrow. We'll be here with another story that shouldn't have happened and did anyway.